is the greatest cleanser. So he was very strict to his disciples, whosoever was coming to his ashram for the training. Many disciples came, many left his ashram, but Master never left. His simple teachings was how to balance the earthly duties and the spiritual duties. He said earthly duties are equally important because God has given you a part in this earthly drama of life. So, until we are having this free air on this earth, we have to perform our earthly duties. But spiritual duties are equally important. We have to make time for God. We have to meditate and do our kriyas with more focused and the concentration way. Once he told Master, don't be overdrunk with ecstasy. There is much work to do on this earth yet for you. Come, let's sweep the balcony. So that was his simple way of teaching. His ashram was having a very simple way of living. Simple diet, simple living, and hermitage duties was going on like a flow with his blessings and with his guidance in every part. So this chapter is very, very close to my heart. I often read this chapter and think, suppose I'm there with him, doing all the works or doing all the duties, whatever he has given me, or Dr. Amar is there. So coming out of all the luxuries of life, leading a simple way with higher spiritual thinking is very, very important. So we should take a great resolve today on his Mahasamadhi day, that we will meditate and we will do our kriyas with a more focused and more concentration, with lot of concentration, and we will always make time for God. Because earthly duties are there, but duties to God is always equally important. Thank you, friends.
Yeah, I think that message is very loud and clear, that right in the chant that, oh my saint, you did not meditate, you need to wake up. We all are budding saints and we need to wake up. And this is what the Mansi ji was trying to remind all of us, that this is how Yukteshwarji was training in his ashram. And when we were chatting just a day before, or probably in the morning, when we had to prepare for the satsang, and I was thinking about this upcoming day for last few days, and trying to tune in to Yukteshwarji's vibrations, what I can share with everybody. But then Mansi ji was saying, oh, Swami Shri Yukteshwarji was very strict. It is very difficult to bring his teachings and what to share. It is very easy for me to talk about Master, and because he always speaks lovingly. And so you see, this is the impression often we have in our minds, that Yukteshwarji was very strict. I don't know how people were staying in his ashram. But is that entirely true? Because as in the last 2 days, I happened to come across a very beautiful book written by one of an Ananda devotee. His name is Richard Salva. And he actually wanted to, because when Swami Kriyananda told him and everybody that Yukteshwarji was land frank in the days of William the Conqueror. So this was the year 1020 or 1060. So just take yourself 1,000 years back, when in the history of times when these great souls, they were reincarnating themselves for a new drama. So I'll share with you what I read in the book. But you see, when these great souls, they come on the planet, Yogananda and Yukteshwarji, they were in a way diametrically opposite as far as their outer personality was concerned. One of them was a very, from outside, he was very stern, maybe just like a coconut. It's very hard on the outside, but inner beauty or inner sensitivity, as in this one of the statements that she was reading from Autobiography of a Yogi, when he said, "These are my simple annals." And he just talked about his outer drama. He never even gave any glimpse to anybody that what was his stature. At many times, Yogananda actually wrote in the book that he was a tiger of the Bengal tiger or Bengal lion, and just he was hiding himself from everybody, and he was not disclosing his true stature. Otherwise, thousands could have thronged his ashram. And at one time, Swamiji also asked this question to Yogananda, that, "Sir," uh, when actually he said that, "Sir, I can see love in those eyes." But Yogananda just dismissed that statement. He said, "No, there was no love in those eyes." So, but then, Swami said that, "No, sir, perhaps I feel that maybe because all his disciples were already free, and he came for a very specific role in this incarnation, in this role that he was performing, and he did not want to take any further responsibility of any new disciple. So that is why probably he was keeping this facade of sternness." And "Is that true, Master?" And then Yogananda nodded and he said, "Yes, that's true." So you see, sometimes these great souls, for one reason or the other, they actually don't reveal their true nature. And Richard Salva, when he was doing his research on his book, he actually went to this place, as he was Archbishop of Canterbury. Now, Canterbury is a small town in England where, as we know, William the Conqueror was, in those days, he came for a very profound historical reason, as Swami said. And in those days, their roles were exactly opposite to what we know from Autobiography of a Yogi. And as we know that Swami himself, from the history pages, he used to consider William the Conqueror as a very stern king who was very ruthless, and that is how at least historians have projected him. Whereas Lanfranc, who was the priest and archbishop at that time, he was very, calm person. And during his times, when there was this monastery in which his superior, whose name was Harluin, and he was guiding all these monks, and he actually found that this Lanfranc was, since he was, before coming to Canterbury, he was in Italy, where he was a lawyer, and he was very wise at that time, and he was a great lawyer. He used to teach languages, he used to teach history, and but then he understood, Harluin, that he is not an ordinary monk, and very soon he absolved him of his outer responsibilities, and he said, "You should be giving lectures and talks, because people will come, and when they will listen to your talks, because..." And since Lanfranc had a great respect for Harluin, he accepted that commandment which came from him, and he started giving, talks in that university, you may say, which was coming up, and people were coming in thousands to listen to him. And very soon there was this, as sometimes it happens when master had really love for this boy who came. Harluin used to love more this gentleman, Lanfranc, and other disciples started getting jealous of him. So, and Lanfranc also noticed that probably this is not the time I should stay. And so at one time he said, "Okay, maybe I should go in the hermitage and I should pray and meditate, and so that, I can find freedom from this place." But at that time, Harluin had a dream in which his brother, who actually had died earlier, came into his dream, and he told him about that, "Don't allow Lanfranc to leave, because he's needed at this place." And when next day morning, when Lanfranc went to Harluin, and Harluin actually said, "No, I know you want to leave the place," but he didn't even speak. And Harluin said that, "I don't think you need to go from this place. Stay here." And again, Lanfranc was very much, astonished that how he knew already. And that is how, this is a very beautiful book. It is written by this gentleman, Richard Salva, who has actually visited that place many times. They go to these places, take pilgrimages. And his wife has a very beautiful, just in the last page of this book, he has actually shared, just to emphasize the beauty and the sensitivity of Yukteshwarji's soul that she experienced when she was meditating in that place where he used to teach. And so what she experienced was, here it is a quote, and her name was Vani, is Vani, Richard Salva's wife. And in her words, she says, when she was meditating there, what she experienced. A blanket of peace descended, and I lost interest in the external world. I tuned into Shri Yukteswar's consciousness and was keenly struck by how sweet it was. I was familiar with his reputation as an avatar of wisdom, but how sweet and loving he was. When Richard returned from his walk, my soul was soaring. Although it was very hot and humid, my spirit was refreshed. My soul had just been fed the sweetest nectar of divine joy. I will never forget my afternoon in Beck. So Beck was that place where he used to give his classes. So friends, this is always, it is a journey when we come and gather, and when we celebrate these important days of Mahasamadhi. As just day before yesterday we were celebrating Master's Mahasamadhi, and these 2 days, they come in close succession, one after the other. And it also kind of gave me, as you saw in those pages also, when in fact I was reading that poem which Yogananda wrote about his guru, when he says that we have already met earlier, and that is why we came here and we participated. So, and it, because they had so much opposite in their outer natures, it somehow looks like that they were soulmates to one another. And Swami Kriyananda, I think at one time did say that. Probably that is what is my understanding. And they were soulmates, and they were coming again and again, whether they came as William the Conqueror or Lanfranc, or they came as Yogananda and Yukteswar, and many more times they must have come. So this is how you see that if you see one was a avatar of wisdom, the other was a prem avatar, and wisdom and joy, they go together. So today I also thought that I will talk about these two, some of two great teachings of of Yukteshwarji. If you see, one of them was that wisdom is the greatest cleanser, and the other was when he said, you cannot take one foot in front of the other on the spiritual path unless our natural love of our heart is awakened. Now, these two statements, if you see, one is talking about wisdom and the other is talking about love and devotion, and they complement one another. So I thought, okay, let us go deeper into this theme, that what is wisdom? And I was looking for an answer, like just like Swami Kriyananda has a knack of picking the subject from the actual simplicity and giving us a definition, you may say. So then I was doing some Google research, that what is true wisdom? How can we put it in one word, or maybe explain what is true wisdom? And I happened to come across this satsang where Swami is talking about one thing where he says, a perfect discrimination is wisdom, but then he says it only comes when you have soul bliss. And there he is actually talking about Bhagavad Gita, where in the 2nd chapter, Krishna is saying, he also talks about it, that in the 2nd chapter, which is verse 53, that first he says, what is wisdom? This is Swami's words when he says, one who is centered in the self, who has calm discrimination, and no affliction can disturb him, one who remains in perfect stillness. That is wisdom. And then Krishna actually talks about it. How can one attain it? So there are few verses here which I am picking up from Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is saying, when your discrimination is no longer tossed about by opinions, but abides unshaken in soul bliss, then you attain final union with God. O Partha, Arjuna, one who has put away all desires, being wholly contented in the self, may be considered settled in wisdom. So one feels, okay, if that is wisdom, how can I attain it? And under He who under all circumstances is without attachment is neither elated by goodness nor depressed by evil, is a man of established wisdom. Now, this is exactly what we sang in the chant when we say desire and attachments are the two things which, if we are not able to fight with, we will not be able to go into soul bliss. That is why we are saying, desire, my great enemy. And how can I win over desire? I can only win by staying in the castle of peace. And that castle of peace is nothing but soul bliss. So then Krishna again continues, therefore, O mighty armed Arjuna, withdraw your sense faculties from the senses themselves. Thus will your wisdom become firmly established. Now there is another, thing which Yukteshwarji gave. Now many of us know that he wrote a book called Holy Science. It's a very abstract book, not easy to understand. But then he gave 5 pillars of self-realization, so which I read recently. Now he said that these 5 pillars, if we go, are one is virya. Then he said the other is I've written them because otherwise you keep forgetting. So the second is Shraddha, the third is Om Sadhana, fourth is Swadhyay, and then fifth is Tapas. And they actually come in that order. So let us see what does he mean over there. Now, if you see, Virya is nothing but self-control. It is basically practicing of yamas and niyamas, instituting discipline, just like Mansi ji was saying, like without discipline, without this resolve, without this, thing in our mind that, okay, I must meditate at least for some time every day, this kind of discipline. So that, you may say, is the bedrock. And that self-control or self-discipline is the foundation on which that palace of self-realization can be built. But just like no foundation is complete, the walls, you may say, are of Shraddha and devotion. So self-control and devotion, they go together. Swami used to often give example that let us think of a hot air balloon. Now, if you want your balloon to rise up, you have to keep pumping hot air into it. So he said, okay, this hot air is like devotion. If that devotion is missing, however disciplined you may be, but your balloon will not rise. So see Shraddha as the hot air, you're pumping into it with your love for God. And then once the balloon rises up, then up in the sky, you don't see the mundane reality. And that Om Sadhana is something which takes us beyond our bodily, you may say, cage, because we have to understand the Swadhyay. So the Om Shraddha, the Om is a beautiful technique, as many of us practice it. So when we take that balloon from Shraddha, devotion, into the Om Sadhana, gradually it dissolves our bodily limitation, and that brings us to Swadhyay. Swadhyay is nothing but understand who we are, study of who am I. And once that balloon goes very high in the sky, then it starts dissolving into the ether, and you start feeling oneness with the ether, and you dissolve completely and understand that it was he alone who was performing this role through you. And this little illusion of separation was nothing but an illusion, and you feel that oneness. But all along these 4 things, the 5th pillar is also important, which is tapas, which means that in this whole pathway, one has to keep a lot of patience. As at one time, somebody asked, she was a nun, I think, and last time when we were hearing we were in the Satsang of Yogananda, Amit ji were talking about this gentleman, Frank Laubach, about this beautiful book, Practicing the Presence of God. And there in this book, one of the nun writes letter to probably another guy, his name is Brother Lawrence, where she says she wanted to, quickly progress on the spiritual path. So Brother Lawrence reminds her that, on the spiritual path, nothing can happen quickly. Probably you're in a too much hurry, and you need to have patience. And whatever you are doing is fine, but just continue doing it, and one day you will be at your goal. So these 5 pillars, I think, of Swami Shri Yukteshwarji, starting from self-control to Shraddha to Om Sadhana, Then Swadhyay and Tapas are a kind of reminder, which just to keep it simple, as Yukteshwarji was a man of few words, and probably he was instructing in very few words to his disciples. And finally, I would say, what is the goal if you see? If the final goal is to, as last time also when we were talking about the statement, as Yogananda said, when these great souls are gone, how can we remain in touch with them? So Yogananda gave this answer that yes, to one who will think me near, I will be near. But this statement is actually true for every one of them, those who are on the altar. Don't think that only Yogananda is near if you think them near. Everybody, they are avatars. They keep coming. They are the saviors of the planet. And Yukteshwarji actually even gave his address where he is right in Hiranyaloka, where just in the higher astral world where he's ushering the advanced souls into the causal world. So when that chapter is very beautiful. Many of us have read it many times, the resurrection of Swami Shri Yukteswar, where he says that he is there. So that whenever this thought comes to you, okay, maybe God is there, or maybe I don't know whether Guru is really listening or not. He is. Whatever you speak to them, they listen. So when we say, in fact, for Babaji also, Yoganandaji has written that anybody who takes his name with love and devotion, he receives instant blessings. So you see, these great souls are there. Now the thing is that when we practice their presence, as Acharya Amitji was sharing with us last time, that when we try to practice their presence, whether it is of any of these gurus, then what happens? Then he said that it's a will, you exercise your will, but then every other job becomes effortless. So that is a very profound gift, you may say, that we receive. So I just wanted to go back into the book, and I want to close with this, where what actually Frank Laubach was saying when he was practicing the presence of God. So when we practice the presence of God and when we practice the presence of Guru, what happens? What changes they start coming? Now, this is a book which he wrote in the late 1900s, and he has actually even put a date on it, and what date on which he experienced this thing, which I'm going to share with you. This is on May 24, 1930. He was a missionary. What he says, as I analyze myself, I find several things happening to me as a result of these 2 months of strenuous effort to keep the Lord in mind every minute. So just after 2 months, he got this experience. This concentration upon God is strenuous, but everything else has ceased to be. I think more clearly. I forget less frequently. Things which I did with a strain before, I now do easily and with no effort whatever. I worry about nothing and lose no sleep. I walk on air a good part of the time. Even the mirror reveals a new light in my eyes and face. I no longer feel in a hurry about anything. Everything goes right. Each minute I meet calmly as though it were not important. Nothing can go wrong excepting one thing, that is, that God may slip from my mind if I do not keep on my guard. If He is there, the universe is with me. My task is simple and clear. And this is exactly what Yukteshwarji was also saying, that if we have night and day in thy joy, O my Lord, and then you don't have to worry anything anymore. So with those words, we will close this satsang, that if we keep God and Gurus in our heart night and day in thy joy, you remain in that castle of peace, then we don't have to worry anything anymore.